Hi guys, it's Panthers fan back in another video. Today I'm going to be predicting the first round of the 2021 NBA playoffs, and I know that the first game of each of the series has been played at the time of filming, but I'm just going to predict who I think will win each series in the first round, and then when it's the second round, I'll be doing the same thing for the second round, so on and so forth throughout the rest of the NBA playoffs. So we're going to start with the first matchup in the Eastern Conference and work our way through. And the reason why I am wearing a Hornets hat jersey is just because I want to wear some Hornets gear, because they are my favorite NBA team. And if you guys do want a video on what I think the Hornets should do in the offseason, let me know in the comments below and I might make a video about that. But we're going to get right into the predictions for round one of the NBA playoffs right now. And also, if you're not following me on Instagram, go follow me down below. It would really mean a lot to me. And thank you guys for the support on my Instagram, now reaching over 75 followers on there for the first time, and previously it was only around 60, so thank you so much for following me. And if you want to see more content of me, just go over to Instagram, links in the description. Let's get right into the video. So first, we have the number 1 Philadelphia 76ers taking on the number 8 Washington Wizards. I think in this series, the 76ers are going to win easily, because I think the 76ers are a really good team with Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris, Seth Curry, etc. I think they're just a really good team. And I know Russell Westbrook has been playing really well for the Wizards, and Bradley Beal is really good, but Beal's also dealing with an injury. So I think the 76ers here are just going to be a little bit too good for the Wizards and get the win here and move on to the second round of the NBA playoffs. Let's get into the next matchup in the Eastern Conference. Next, we have the number 4 Knicks taking on the number 5 Atlanta Hawks. In this matchup, I think it's really close. I think this series could go either way, but I'm going to give the slight edge to the New York Knicks because I think their defense is going to be really good, because they are the best defensive team in the NBA, and I think they're going to be able to slow down the Hawks just enough to barely squeak through into the second round. But I could easily see Atlanta winning this series, but I'm going to go with the Knicks winning this series against the Hawks in the first round and moving on to the second round of the NBA playoffs. Let's get into the next Eastern Conference matchup. Next, we have the number 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks taking on the number 6 seed Miami Heat. This is a rematch from the playoffs in the bubble last year of the Bucks versus Heat in the playoffs. I think this time, however, the Bucks are going to come out on top and move on to the second round, unlike last time where the Heat beat the Bucks in the second round to move on to the conference final. So I'm going to go with the Milwaukee Bucks win this series, but I could see the Heat coming back, but I believe the Bucks are just going to be too much for the Heat to handle, and they have Giannis, who's just really good, and I don't know if they're going to be able to stop him and Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday all on one team, and Brook Lopez and some other players as well. So I'm going to give the slight edge to the Bucks to win this series. Let's get into the final series in the Eastern Conference. So the final series we have is the number 2 Brooklyn Nets versus the number 7 Boston Celtics. In this series, I think the Nets are going to easily win because they have Kevin Durant, James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Joe Harris, who's a really good three-point shooter, and some more really good players on that team. And the Celtics are without their second best player in Jaylen Brown, all-star. They only have Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, and Robert Williams, who had a really good first game in that series. So overall, I think the Nets just are a little bit too much for the Celtics to handle, and I think the Nets should easily be able to win this game and move on to round 2 of the NBA playoffs. Let's get into the Western Conference matchups. First in the Western Conference, we have the number 1 Utah Jazz taking on the number 8 Memphis Grizzlies. I'm actually going to pick the Grizzlies to win this series, even though they are the number 8, to upset number 1, because the Jazz are without Donovan Mitchell. He might come back later in the playoffs. We'll have to see. But the reason why I think the Grizzlies will win is because they're riding off a ton of momentum, beating the Spurs and the Warriors to even make it here in the play-in. And then already winning game 1 against the Jazz. So they have a lot of momentum going. And I think Ja Morant is just going to carry this team. And with some other help, obviously, it's not going to be just him, but is a good leader for this Memphis Grizzlies team, even though they are a very young team. So I think the Grizzlies get the win in this series and move on to the second round of the Western Conference playoffs. But I think this will be a really close series, but I am going to give the slight edge to Memphis. Let's get into the next matchup. Next, we have the number 4 Clippers taking on the number 5 Mavericks. I think this matchup is going to be very close. I think this might go to 6 or 7 games. I think it's going to be a really close matchup, but I am going to give the slight edge to the LA Clippers because I think if they can figure out how to slow down Luka Doncic, they have a really good chance in this series because the Mavericks are really good. But if you could stop Luka Doncic, I feel like they have better players where they could beat the Mavericks if they can just slow down Luka Doncic. But that is a big ask because he is a very good player. But I am going to give the slight edge to the Clippers, but I would not be surprised at all if the Mavericks win this series. So I have the Clippers moving on to round 2. Let's get into the next Western Conference series. Next, we have the number 3 Denver Nuggets taking on the number 6 Portland Trail Blazers. I'm going to go with the number 3 Denver Nuggets to win this series, even though they don't have their all-star point guard Jamal Murray, because I think Jokic, Aaron Gordon, and Michael Porter Jr. and etc. for the Nuggets is just a little bit too much for Damian Lillard to handle. but I would not be surprised if Lillard did carry his team and win this series for the Trailblazers, but I just don't think I should be picking against the most likely MVP in Nikola Jokic, so I'm just going to give the win to the Nuggets in this series to move on to the second round of the playoffs in the Western Conference. So now let's get into the final matchup in the first round of the playoffs. We have the number 2 Phoenix Suns taking on the number 7 Los Angeles Lakers. I think this series is going to go to 7 games. I think this is going to be a really close series because I think the Suns are a really good team. They are fairly young other than Chris Paul because Devin Booker's still young and there's a lot of other young players on that team and they don't all have a ton of playoff experience or success. So it is going to be hard for the Suns to win against the defending champs, the Los Angeles Lakers. But I think they can do it because the Lakers, LeBron and AD have not looked great recently, and they are coming off injuries. So I know they're capable of being really good players, those two. But if they can just lock them down, like DeAndre Ayton, if he can lock down Anthony Davis, I think there's a really good chance for the Suns to win this series. So I'm going to give the slight edge to the Suns in winning Game 7. But I could easily see the Lakers winning because they are the defending champs. So they do still have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, two of very good players in the NBA. So I think it's going to be a really close series, but I am going to give the slight edge to the Suns and move on to round 2. So let me know who you guys think will win each series in round 1 of the NBA playoffs. And once we get to round 2, I'll do the same predictions, but with the round 2 teams. So thank you guys for watching. And let me know if you liked this type of video, because I know I normally do NFL, but I was doing NBA content today. So let me know how you like that in the comments below. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.